The building stood at the end of a forgotten street, its skeletal frame rising against the darkened sky like the bones of a long-dead beast. Hollow windows stared vacantly into the night, and the wind whispered through cracks in the rotting wood and crumbling concrete. Blackwood Heights had once been a thriving apartment complex, but now it was nothing more than an abandoned ruin, swallowed by time and neglect. Lena Carter had always been drawn to places like this. As an urban explorer, she sought out the derelict and the forgotten, searching for stories hidden in decay. She had heard the rumors about Blackwood Heights, the vanished tenants, the unexplained noises, the shadows that moved when no one was looking. It was the kind of place that sent shivers down spines and fueled nightmares. And Lena couldn't resist. She parked her car a block away, not wanting to draw attention, and made her way toward the building with only a flashlight and a camera slung around her neck. The night air was thick, damp with the promise of rain, and the faint scent of mildew and rust clung to the wind. The front entrance had long been barricaded, but Lena had done her research. There was an old service door around the side, a rusted metal gateway hanging slightly ajar, as if inviting her inside. She squeezed through, her boots crunching on shattered glass and debris. The air inside was stale, heavy with the weight of abandonment. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating peeling wallpaper and graffiti-covered walls. The silence was suffocating, pressing in on her like an unseen force. She took a step forward, her breath steady but heart pounding with the thrill of the unknown. A noise. Lena froze. It was soft, almost imperceptible but unmistakable, the sound of something shifting in the darkness above. A creak, followed by a faint rustling, like feet scraping against old wood. She swept her flashlight upward, the beam trembling slightly as it passed over the grand staircase leading to the upper floors. The darkness beyond its reach seemed impossibly deep, a yawning abyss swallowing the light whole. Another noise. This time a whisper. Oh, indistinct. Coming from the second floor. Lena swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around her flashlight. This was what she had come for, wasn't it? Proof that something still lingered in the forgotten corners of Blackwood Heights. Slowly, cautiously, she placed a foot on the bottom step. The wood groaned beneath her weight, a protest against the intrusion. Then, from the top of the stairs, something moved. A shadow, impossibly fast, slipping out of sight just as her flashlight reached it. Lena sucked in a sharp breath. Every instinct told her to run. Instead, she climbed. Each step felt heavier than the last, the old wood groaning beneath Lena's cautious ascent. The air on the second floor was even staler, thick with the scent of dust and something else. Something metallic, faint but unmistakable. Blood. Rust? She couldn't tell. Her flashlight flickered, casting long, jittery shadows across the hallway. The doors to the apartments lined the corridor like silent sentinels, some ajar, others shut tight as if guarding whatever lay within. The wallpaper was peeling in large, curling strips, exposing the water-damaged wood beneath. A soft thump echoed from the far end of the hallway. Lena swung her flashlight toward the sound. The beam caught movement just for a second. A door, slightly open, swayed as if disturbed by an unseen force. She took a slow, deliberate breath and stepped forward. The silence was deafening. Every crunch of her boots against the dusty floor felt like a scream in the empty building. She reached the door and hesitated. It was marked with a faded number, 209. She pushed it open with the tip of her flashlight. The room beyond was a wreck. A small, overturned table, a torn mattress on the floor, and walls covered in graffiti. But it wasn't the destruction that made her skin crawl, it was the writing. Dozens of phrases, scrawled in frantic, uneven strokes, covering every inch of the walls. They never left. Don't listen to them. It sees you. Run before it knows your name. Lena took a step back, her heart hammering in her chest. That's when she heard it again. A whisper. But this time it was right behind her. She spun around, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The hallway was empty. But the door at the far end of the hall, one that had been closed just moments ago, was now wide open. And something was standing in the doorway. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the figure in the doorway. Her flashlight flickered, and for a brief moment, the beam revealed only an empty frame. But she knew she had seen something. A shadow. A presence. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she forced herself to take a step forward, her instincts warring between curiosity and terror. The writing on the walls had told her to run, but her gut told her to understand. She had come here to uncover the truth, and she wasn't about to back down. With hesitant steps, she moved toward the open doorway. The room beyond was nearly pitch black, its walls hidden in thick shadows. She raised her flashlight, its flickering beam catching glimpses of what lay inside. Another ruined apartment, the furniture long decayed, the wallpaper curling from years of moisture and neglect. And then, on the far wall, a mirror. The glass was shattered, jagged cracks spreading outward like a web. Yet, despite the damage, something was reflected in it. Something that wasn't there in the room itself. Lena's fingers tightened around her flashlight. The reflection was dark. A figure standing just beyond the threshold of the doorway she had entered through was watching her. She spun around, expecting to find someone, something, standing behind her. But the hallway was empty. Silent. She turned back to the mirror. The figure had moved closer in its reflection. A chill crept up her spine. Lena raised her camera with a shaking hand and snapped a photo. The flash illuminated the room for a brief second, and in that instant, the shadow in the mirror twisted. The air turned frigid. A whisper curled around her ear, so close she could feel the breath of it, though there was no one there. Leave. Lena stumbled back, knocking into the splintered doorframe. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts as she clutched her camera. The weight of the air around her shifted, pressing down like unseen hands against her shoulders. The walls groaned, and from somewhere deeper in the building, a door slammed shut with violent force. Lena ran. She bolted down the hallway, her flashlight bouncing wildly with every step. The whispers followed her, weaving through the darkness like fingers grasping at her heels. The staircase loomed ahead, and she nearly tripped in her desperate rush downward. The rotten wood beneath her feet protested, creaking and cracking, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Reaching the ground floor, she turned sharply toward the service door she had entered through. It was still ajar, a thin sliver of moonlight spilling through the gap. She didn't look back. Lena burst through the doorway and into the open night air, gulping in deep breaths as she staggered away from the building. The wind had picked up, carrying the scent of rain and decay. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with her camera, pulling up the last photo she had taken. Her stomach twisted. The image showed the broken mirror, the jagged shards reflecting the empty room. But in the center of the reflection, staring directly at the camera, were eyes. Hollow, black, and watching. Her own reflection stood in the background of the image, but there was something behind her. Something she hadn't seen when she had turned around. A hand, reaching for her shoulder. Lena dropped the camera. The whispers had stopped, but the silence felt worse. She glanced back at Blackwood Heights, at its skeletal frame looming against the dark sky. The windows were as hollow as before, the building as lifeless as it had seemed when she first arrived. But now she knew better. Something still lived inside those walls. And it had seen her. Lena sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled hands. Her breath was still uneven, her skin cold with sweat. The camera lay on the passenger seat, the screen still displaying the eerie image of the mirror, of the eyes watching her, of the hand reaching for her. She had spent years chasing the unknown, exploring the abandoned and the forgotten. But this time she had found something real. And it had found her too. Her first instinct was to leave. Drive as far from Blackwood Heights as she could and never look back. But she hesitated. The rational part of her mind screamed that she had the proof she had always wanted. That she had captured something impossible. Yet another part, the same reckless curiosity that had led her here in the first place, whispered that she wasn't finished. Lena exhaled sharply and reached for her phone. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through her contacts, stopping at one name, Mark Dunham. Paranormal investigator, researcher, and an old friend who would understand what she had seen. She pressed the call button. It rang twice before his groggy voice answered. Lena? It's past midnight. I need your help, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Blackwood Heights. Something's in there, Mark. Something real. Pause. Then the sound of rustling sheets as he sat up. You sure? I have proof, she said, gripping the camera. A photo. A reflection that shouldn't be there. Mark sighed. All right. Stay put. I'll be there in 30 minutes. She ended the call and leaned back in her seat, staring at the towering ruin of Blackwood Heights. The wind howled through the empty windows, and for a moment she could swear she saw movement, a flicker of something shifting in the darkness. She looked away. 30 minutes later. Mark's old Jeep pulled up beside her car, its headlights cutting through the mist that had begun to settle around the building. He stepped out, dressed in his usual dark hoodie and jeans, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Show me, he said, skipping the greetings. Lena handed him the camera. He studied the image, his brow furrowing. Then, without a word, he pulled a small flashlight from his bag and turned to the building. We need to go back in. Lena stiffened. Mark, You know we do, he interrupted. Whatever this is, we need to understand it. You said it saw you? She nodded reluctantly. Then it might not be done with you. The word sent a chill through her. But he was right. She had started this and now she had to see it through. Together they approached the service door. The air was even heavier than before, charged with something unseen. Lena hesitated at the threshold, listening. The building was silent. Too silent. Mark stepped in first, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. Lena followed, every nerve on edge. The hallway looked the same, yet different, like the shadows had deepened, the decay more pronounced. Where did you see it? Mark whispered. Second floor. Room 209. They moved carefully, the old wood groaning beneath their weight. As they reached the stairs, a sound echoed from above. A slow, deliberate creak. Someone, or something, was waiting. Lena's breath came in shallow gasps as she followed Mark up the creaking stairs, the darkness pressing in from all sides. The air was heavier now, thick with an unseen presence. Something was waiting for them on the second floor. She could feel it. As they reached the hallway, Mark swept his flashlight across the peeling wallpaper and warped wooden doors. Lena's stomach tightened when the beam landed on room 209. The door, once slightly ajar, was now wide open. Are you ready? Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. Lena swallowed and nodded. They stepped inside. The room was unchanged, graffiti-covered walls, overturned furniture, and that same shattered mirror. But now, a single phrase had appeared among the scrawled warnings, written in something dark and smeared. It's not trapped anymore. Mark exhaled sharply. Whatever was bound to this place, it's loose now. Lena's pulse thundered. Loose? Before he could answer, a deep groan reverberated through the building. The temperature plummeted. The flashlight flickered. And then, the whispering returned. It wasn't distant this time. It was all around them, an overlapping chorus of voices. Some were pleading, others furious, but one voice cut through the rest, low and resonant. Lena. She froze. Mark's flashlight died. The darkness swallowed them whole. Lena fumbled for her camera, clicking the flash. For a split second the room illuminated, and she saw it. A figure, tall and hollow-eyed, standing just behind Mark. Its face was an empty void, its fingers elongated and reaching. But worse than that, there were others. Dozens of shadowy shapes lining the walls, their vacant eyes fixated on her. The light vanished. Mark cursed. The air vibrated with something unnatural. Run! Lena screamed. She grabbed Mark's wrist and bolted. The door slammed shut behind them, but the whispering followed, turning into a wailing cacophony. The walls seemed to close in as they sprinted down the hallway. The staircase groaned under their weight. Lena's foot slipped on a loose board and for a terrifying moment she tumbled forward, but Mark caught her, yanking her upright. They reached the ground floor just as an ear-splitting shriek tore through the air, rattling the very foundation of the building. The service door was within reach. Lena lunged for it, shoving it open, and they stumbled into the cold night. Silence. The whispers had stopped. Lena turned back. Blackwood Heights stood as still as a tomb, its hollow windows reflecting nothing. Whatever had been inside, it wasn't bound there anymore. Mark hunched over, catching his breath. We need to burn this place down. Lena shook her head. It's not about the building, Mark. It never was. He frowned. Then what? She turned the camera screen toward him, replaying the last photo she had taken. The figure wasn't in the room anymore. It was outside, standing right behind them. A sharp gust of wind howled through the trees and Lena realized the truth. Blackwood Heights had never been abandoned. It had just been waiting. And now it was free. This story is not real and is purely a work of imagination.